watching ABC News 4 at 5 with Dean Stevens, Ashley Blackstone, and Dave Williams. This is ABC News 4 at 5.
We begin tonight with breaking news in the Michael Slager case. The former North Charleston police officer pleaded guilty to a civil rights violation in federal court. That plea deal with federal prosecutors ends this federal case and also the state case as well. Take a look. In this plea agreement, Slager admitted to several things, including his taser dropped to the ground behind him. As Scott was running away, Slager fired 8 shots at him from his department-issued firearm. During the time each shot was fired, Scott was unarmed and running away from Slager. 5 shots hit Scott, all entering from behind. Slager shot Scott a little more than 2 years ago after a traffic stop for a broken taillight. And certainly hard to forget this video captured by a witness, Faden Santana. Scott took off from that traffic stop. Interesting to note, too, a friend, a passenger in that car. Slager followed. The 2 men ended up in a struggle before Slager fired his gun. This is video we had of Michael Slager on your right not long after that shooting. And earlier today, before that court appearance, Michael Slager's attorney Andy Savage did release a statement. He said, quote, "This afternoon, Michael Slager will enter a guilty plea to using excessive force in violation of 18 U.S.C. section 242 as he attempted to arrest Walter Scott on April 4th of 2015. We hope that Michael's acceptance of responsibility will help the Scott family as they continue to grieve their loss. As the sentencing date has not yet been determined, we will refrain from further comment at this time." ABC News 4's Alex Heaton was in the courtroom today for that guilty plea hearing. She's joining us live with more. Alex.
Dean, Ashley, Michael Slager is in police custody right now at the Alvin Glenn Detention Center, or excuse me, Al Cannon Detention Center. He came through these gates just about an hour and a half or so ago after that hearing at 2:30. Now, all of this is after we heard late last night and into the early morning that he was going to change his plea of not guilty for that excessive force violation to guilty. And then just about 2:35 today, he approached Judge Richard Norton. He went through those lists of whether he violated his civil rights and several series of questions, whether Michael Slager knew that he was giving up certain civil or constitutional rights of his, like whether he giving up his right to appeal. Scarlett Wilson spoke afterwards to the public, and she talked about what it would mean for law enforcement moving forward.
My hope is by Michael Slager standing up in court, admitting that what he did was wrong, that he knew it was wrong, that it was willful, that it was not self-defense. I hope that that will make law enforcement safer. It's the most dangerous job in the world to be a law enforcement officer here in the United States. We have to turn this around. And my hope is that accountability for Michael Slager is going to mean that fewer officers die, that fewer civilians die, and that we move forward together as a nation, as a community, having love and respect for each other.
Now, inside that courtroom today, it was extremely quiet as Michael Slager said out loud, "I am changing my plea to guilty for excessive force." And about 20 minutes after that, he gave his attorney, Andy Savage, a hug and then was placed into handcuffs and walked right past the Scott family out of the courtroom. Again, very quiet in there. But as we heard from the Scott family and their representatives afterwards, they do feel like they got justice in this case. And they feel that Michael Slager just taking responsibility and standing in that courtroom today saying those words was enough for them. Working for you in downtown Charleston, Alex Heaton, ABC News 4.
Alex, thank you so much. Solicitor Scarlett Wilson also released a statement after the guilty plea. She said, quote, "Today in working with the department, we found justice in a resolution that vindicates the state's interest by holding former police officer Michael Slager accountable for shooting Mr. Scott in the back when Slager knew it was wrong and illegal, as well as justice in a resolution that recognized the egregious violation of Mr. Scott's civil rights." Now that Slager has pleaded guilty to a willful violation, admitted the facts we set out to prove, and waived the right to appeal his conviction, a successive prosecution by the state is not necessary. A first look now at those courtroom sketches from earlier today. The first showing Michael Slager facing the judge
with Judy Scott, Walter Scott's mother, in the bottom right-hand corner. The second this afternoon showing Michael Slager's face as he faced a judge changing his plea to guilty.
Important to remind people, too, that we are not able to bring our cameras into federal court, and reason why for the sketches there. This is a live look now at the Alcan Detention Center. Just about 20-25 minutes ago, Michael Slager was brought into that bay, escorted out of an SUV and taken into the Alcan Detention Center, where he will be processed once again, and a mugshot will then be released. He is expected to be there within 60 to 90 days. Sentencing, he will stay there until the sentencing phase will be held in federal court. Beth Drake with the U.S. Attorney's Office said today that she would see us in the, quote, next several months for sentencing. So you can take that as she said it, whether it be 2 months or 3 months.
Our continuing coverage continues this afternoon with our Bill Burr. He is getting some reaction from Walter Scott's family. Bill.
Ashley, as you might expect, it's been a long couple of years here for Walter Scott's family. They've been remarkably composed during this entire time, and we haven't heard from them too often during the last couple of years, but whenever we did, they were very cautiously optimistic, I guess you could say, regarding the system. And Judy Scott often referred to her faith and her strength in God in being able to get through these proceedings here as we led up to the state trial last year and then eventually to the federal case coming up this year. Solicitor Scarlett Wilson complimented the Scott family for their grace and elegance during this time. Even she was amazed at the strength and composure that the Scott family had during this time, and she gave them a lot of credit as well for asking for peace in the streets here as we went through the legal proceedings here, as the judicial system took its place. And even last fall, when there was a disappointment with the trial, as they weren't obviously expecting for a hung jury, they were optimistic that something would take place here in the federal system, and that's indeed what took place today. First, we're going to hear now from the family's attorney and then Walter Scott's mother and brother. Okay, we had some sound from them, but it's not queued up at this point. But I can tell you that Judy Scott talked about forgiveness, and she said she forgives Michael Slager for what happened. And she said that she is going to be cautiously optimistic here for a proper punishment, whenever that comes down here in the next few months. Beth Scott, an official with the Department of Justice, also said that even though she couldn't comment too much regarding this, she and Solicitor Scarlett Wilson are confident in the federal case here and the federal judge in this, and being able to weigh all the evidence in the case and all the things that have happened here for a punishment to be handed down, where Michael Slager will have to spend a significant amount of time behind bars. We will try to get to some of that sound here from the Scott family coming up a little bit later here on ABC News 4 at 5. Dean and Ashley, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. It's interesting kind of getting different perspective from the family during that press conference. Anthony Scott said, when asked, he said, I want him to have life in prison. When Judy Scott was asked, she said, whatever time I want, it's not going to bring my son back. Yeah, and let's talk about that, because as we've been mentioning over the course of the last 2 hours or so, is that next step in the process, which will be the sentencing phase. Ryan, when can we expect, though, a sentencing date to be set? How long will that process take?
The process could take 6 to 8 weeks or longer, or it could be shorter if they wanted to push it. It depends on how long the federal government's able to get their sentencing report done, and then give a chance to the defense attorneys to do their own memo as well. So that's something that the judge, David Norton, will set that date, or does he come into an agreement with the prosecution? The judge will set that date when he wants that report.
And then walk our viewers through as well what will happen on that day. The family of Walter Scott will get a chance to address the judge.
Address the judge. The judge will have obviously read the memo from the defense team. They will have read the sentencing report from the federal government. He will be familiar with all the evidence in the case, all the impact statements, and then he will render a verdict or render a sentence.
This is something. Is this going to be a day event, a 2-day event?
It just depends on, I mean, this is a very involved case. It's complex. There's a lot of moving parts, so it could be all day. It could be a few hours.
Michael Slager could also speak. That is an option as well, correct?
I believe so, that he has the ability to speak at this. I haven't read anything here that denies him the ability to do that, but that will be up to him and his attorney whether he wants to give a statement.
How closely has the the community of lawyers been following this case?
Oh, I mean, it's a very tight-knit community. The Charleston Bar, the Berkeley County Bar, you know, we run into each other on a daily basis. We talk. You know, this is what we do for a living. So we've been following this very closely in our office. I know that, as well as, you know, as a topic for discussion at dinner, happy hours with other lawyers as well.
You were reviewing that guilty plea that's in front of you. It's several pages long. The big takeaway from that is you were surprised of the agreement that's being made between the state and the federal governments. Correct. This is, you know, for lack of a better term, I would say that maybe a hybrid agreement. Generally, you don't see state charges and federal charges being wrapped up all at once. Typically, you see the federal government trying a case, winning or losing, and then the state coming back to try a case. Obviously, the state tried the murder case and got a hung jury, and the federal government took over, and this kind of wraps all that up at once.
Coming off of that hung jury, and you can't put yourself in Andy's shoes, but when you come off of that hung jury, feels like a win for him. He's got the momentum coming in to this federal case. If you were a guessing man, what turned the table here?
I would say that the hung jury definitely turned the table. You know, I mean, his client has still pled guilty to federal charges. He still has, well, had the state charges pending because they can always bring them back, but this kind of wraps that up. He did a good job for his client. He did the best job, I think, that he could hope for with the evidence that was presented from what I saw. And I believe this is what allowed, the hung jury is what allowed the resolution and the plea agreement to move forward.
Ryan Schwartz, thank you so much for your insight tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
Good to see you.
As always, you can follow the latest on this developing story on our ABC News 4 mobile app. We've been on the air for the last several hours letting you know the very latest. And of course, we were the first to let you know about Slager's guilty plea through a push alert that was sent out earlier today. If you do not have the app, now, of course, the perfect time to download it so you can learn more about breaking news updates the moments they come into our newsroom. That app, of course, free to download right now for Apple and also Android devices.
And you're watching ABC News 4 at 5. There's much more to come tonight, including continuing team coverage from downtown Charleston after Michael Slager's guilty plea. We'll also take a look at that forecast. We're back after this. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us at this hour, about 2 hours ago, we went on the air to let you know that Michael Slager pleaded guilty in federal court to one civil rights charge in the shooting death of Walter Scott. Today, we have heard from Walter Scott's family. We've also heard from his family's attorney. We have heard from defense attorneys who have been following this case very closely. This is a case that opened up in April of 2015 when Walter Scott was pulled over by Michael Slager, a North Charleston police officer, for a broken taillight. From that point, a chase ensued on foot, and it was around a corner where an eyewitness started shooting video, where video was captured of Michael Slager opening fire, shooting at Walter Scott, hitting him 5 times in the back. If you go to our website at ABC News 4, we have got an extensive timeline taking a look at everything, including in this case, going from bond denied in September of 2015 all the way to this is in 2017. That just happened when Michael Slager was back on the stand having federal testimony. But again, you can go through this entire timeline and all the stories that we have done throughout this case. Government pushes for witnesses all the way through our state coverage. The interesting part about this story today, if you have just joined us, the state has agreed to drop all of the state charges. That trial ended in a hung jury back in January. Michael Slager has been on house arrest ever since. We do know that he has been booked now into the Al Cannon Detention Center. Let's turn our attention right now, go back to the news desk.
All right, Dean, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Again, that's on our website, abcnews4.com. That timeline is. We want to send things out now to Caroline Balchunas. She is joining us as we continue our team coverage tonight of this breaking, developing story. Caroline?
Ashley, it took a lot of people to push this case to where it is today, and it would be remiss not to mention the activists. The activists played a major, important role in the call for justice. They've been calling for justice basically since day one. Walter Scott's brother, Anthony Scott, specifically thanked Elder James Johnson, the leader of the state National Action Network. He thanked him for being there from day one when all of this was starting to unfold. And over the past 2 years, members with NAN have been holding rallies, calling for justice. They've really been a mouthpiece in urging law enforcement to implement policy and changes directly stemming from this case. Reverend Nelson B. Rivers III, he spoke today at the press conference earlier. He says they are pleased that someone has finally been held accountable.
Today's guilty plea in federal court by the former North Charleston police officer Michael Slager for violating the civil rights of Mr. Walter Scott by shooting him 5 times in the back is a major victory for justice, for civil rights, for this family, for the National Action Network, and the entire civil rights community. We stand with the family of Walter Scott as they announce their satisfaction that finally justice has been served.
Rivers and Elder Johnson also specifically thanked the Department of Justice for acting on this matter. They say their action shows the people of America that all lives matter. And Johnson says he hopes Slager will get a just sentence and hopes the attitudes within the community will stem because of this particular case. Reporting live from downtown Charleston, I'm Caroline Balchunas.
All right, Caroline, thank you. Of course, we've been following the story from day one. You can find links on our coverage at abcnews4.com. We'll also have a poll on our website. We want to know what you think. Should Michael Slager receive the maximum sentence? That is life in prison. You can vote right now on our website, abcnews4.com. We're back after this.
ABC News 4 First Warning Weather with Chief Meteorologist Dave Williams.
We got some beneficial rain from those thunderstorms last night. The front pushed off the coast and we ended up with a gorgeous day today. Not as breezy. I know there were still some wind gusts out there, lower humidity, and we're going to see that gorgeous weather continuing for now, at least through tomorrow. But then as we go from Thursday into Friday, we've got a storm system coming our way. That's going to bring a cool down. We're only going to see highs in the 70s starting Friday, and that'll continue right on through the weekend. Look at this bright beach sunrise we had this morning, sent in to us by Austin Bond. I'll come over here. This was at Litchfield Beach, and look at those rays of sunshine just above that thin cloud layer reflecting off the ocean. Beautiful shot. Thanks for sending it in, Austin. If you've got some pictures, please share them with us. We'd love to see them. Maybe you're headed out to the River Dogs game tonight. Take some weather pictures. If you're headed out there, first pitch 7:05 this evening. We're looking at temperatures around 74 degrees, bright sunshine, westerly winds blowing around 6 miles an hour. Now, I mentioned that cool down coming. Look at this, only a high of 73 degrees on Saturday. And we're going to be looking at a mixture of sun and clouds. Sunday, mostly sunny skies, 78, so a touch cool for this time of the year, but not cold, just a little cooler. Right now, we've got most of the temperatures in the 80s across South Carolina. Parts of the Midlands and the upstate looking at the mid and upper 70s. Here are the wind gusts right now, and I mentioned a few wind gusts, 20 miles an hour right now in Charleston, 16-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Beaufort, but nothing like those 30 and 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts we were seeing yesterday. This is also nice and quiet. Live first warning, Doppler radar not picking up any raindrops whatsoever. It's all dry. We've got cooler air that's built in and much less humid air on the backside of that cold front, which is now way out in the Atlantic Ocean. And things are pretty quiet for right now, but that will change as a storm system pulls out of the plains here and makes its way across the country. Here's how Futurecast sees it. And right now, there's not a storm system, but there's some energy from Salt Lake on over toward Denver. As that moves out of the Rockies into the plains, we'll start to see that storm system forming in Texas and Oklahoma on Wednesday morning. Then that storm system really intensifies tomorrow afternoon and headed toward Thursday. This is 1 o'clock in the morning. We're still nice and dry on Thursday in the morning, but later in the day, we've got to watch those showers and thunderstorms, which could roll in late in the afternoon on into the evening, especially overnight into Friday morning. As far as your forecast overnight tonight, clear, calm, and a little cooler with a low of 57. Then tomorrow, 84, lots of sunshine, a very nice Wednesday. And a look at your 7-day forecast does have a gorgeous Wednesday. That rain, as we saw, very late Thursday, especially overnight into Friday. Cooler temperatures arrive on Friday, and they'll stick around into the weekend. Only 70s for highs, and headed toward next week, we'll get closer to average with highs right up around 80. Dean and Ashley.
Hey, Dave, thank you. Our continuing coverage of Michael Slager's guilty plea continuing tonight at 5:30. We do have team coverage, our live reports coming up.
But first, it is time to salute a hero. Senior Airman Menebri Helarasi is assigned to the 628th Comptroller Squadron as a financial management technician. She was born in Ethiopia, sent to the U.S. by her parents with her older sister at age 11. We thank you for your service. If you'd like us to recognize a military hero past or present, go to our website at abcnews4.com.
ABC News 4 at 5 starts now.
Michael Slager is officially in jail tonight. He was booked in at 4:50 p.m., a little more than 2 hours after pleading guilty in federal court.
And our Alex Heaton was in the courtroom for that hearing today, as well as the guilty plea. She is live downtown with the very latest here at 5:30. Alex?
Dean, Ashley, as you know, this guilty plea came a change in the plea. Michael Slager had previously pleaded not guilty to this excessive force charge against him. Now, in this hearing today, it was just about 30 minutes, started just after 2:30. Michael Slager was asked a series of questions by Judge Norton about if he understood the plea, if he understood what it meant to change his plea from not guilty to guilty. And he said to the judge, yes, I understand. I'm changing my plea from guilty for this excessive force claim or charge against him. And it was incredibly quiet in the courtroom when he said that today. Now, after this hearing, he was put into cuffs in the courtroom and walked right past the Scott family before he was taken to jail. The Scott family spoke afterwards about this being enough, him taking responsibility. They're not quite worried about the sentence, which we know will be handed down later. And we do know that Judge Norton has a range in this sentence. The U.S. government has suggested a 3-level reduction in that sentence, but Judge Norton has the discretion to go higher or lower with that sentence. But again, that could be several weeks down the road before we even know what that sentence is. We spoke briefly with defense attorney Andy Savage afterwards. Here's what he had to say.
I think it's best just to leave it as it is today. This is a day for the Scott family and for the government, and we'll have more to say as we get down the road, but this just isn't the day to do that.
Now, I want to go back to this plea. In this plea, by pleading guilty, Michael Slager admits to willfully or intentionally shooting Walter Scott in the back 5 times, a little more than 2 years ago. With this plea, he has waived his right to appeal, so this conviction will stand. He does, however, retain the right to appeal his sentence whenever that is handed down. And we also know, most importantly, that the state charges against Michael Slager will be dismissed with this plea deal. Scarlett Wilson spoke afterwards, and she said that this was a great day to get justice for the Scott family, and she cherishes the friendship that she has made with them, and that the Charleston community should look to the Scott family for an example of how to lead life with grace and dignity. Working for you in downtown Charleston, Alex Heaton, ABC News 4.
Alex, we appreciate your coverage. Thank you. And we have, of course, been following this story every step of the way for the last 2 years, on air, online, and through our ABC News 4 app. We were the first to let you know about Slager's guilty plea when we sent out an alert through that app this morning saying it was expected. If you don't have the app, now, of course, the perfect time to download it so you can learn about breaking news and updates as they come in. That app is free to download for Apple and Android devices.
All right, let's move away from the news of the day and talk about the weather of the day. Chief Meteorologist Dave Williams joining us with a pretty good looking forecast.
Yep, we got that rain yesterday. It's long gone. Now it's much less humid, but the rain from last week actually caused some problems, and we're still seeing that on the Edisto River and the Santee River, both in minor flood stage and both currently falling. 11.9 feet on the Edisto River, 13 feet on the Santee River, and the Santee River holding pretty steady, but both in the minor flood stage, and will stay dry through the day tomorrow. Later this week, It looks like we're going to see some more rain. So as we head through the day, Wednesday into Thursday, 4 p.m., still dry. But watch what happens after this. Thursday into Friday, looks like we'll see some scattered showers and thunderstorms, possibly an inch or more of rain. And our current rain deficit is 1.2 inches. So a little bit of rain is good. A lot of rain is not so good. 82 degrees outside right now. Skycam 4 network showing nothing but beautiful bright sunshine. And that's pretty much what we're going to see through the day tomorrow. Another gorgeous day on tap. Temperatures anywhere from 79 to 83 right now. It is gorgeous late this afternoon, and we'll keep it that way this evening. River Dogs playing at home, 7:05 tonight. Get out there and catch a game under some gorgeous weather. 84 into the day tomorrow. Thursday will be nice and warm. Best chance for rain coming late in the day, 85 your high. And then on Friday, much cooler, 74s your high. Plenty of clouds and still some lingering showers. So with those cooler temperatures coming, that got me thinking. And what is the coldest temperature recorded in the month of May in Charleston? KCHS, that's the airport. Was it 32 degrees? Was it 36 degrees or 38 degrees the entire month of May? Coldest temperature we've ever seen. Get your answer coming up to that in just a little bit, and we'll get you a full peek at the 7-day forecast. It's only a few minutes away.
Looking forward to it. Dave, thank you. New at 5:30 in the hot seat on Capitol Hill. The head of United Airlines grilled for hours after the shocking incident last month where a doctor was dragged off a plane. Lawmakers are looking for ways to improve the customer experience and hold the airlines accountable. The CEO of United Airlines acknowledged the anger over the violent removal of the doctor from a flight in April. He says his airline is now piloting a new set of policies.
This committee and Congress do not want half measures or temporary fixes.
Actions will speak definitely longer than our words. We will do better.
American Southwest and Alaska Airlines were also present for those public hearings. Now Congress and customers wait to see whether today's hearing provides on that promise of an improved air travel experience.
Also new protests at a Confederate monument in New Orleans. About 100 people showed up at the Jefferson Davis Monument Monday night. That statue is one of 3 Confederate memorials New Orleans plans to remove. A time and date, though, has not been announced because of safety concerns. Police arrested several people last night, both for and against the statue's removal. One Confederate statue was removed last month. A bipartisan deal that appeared to be a compromise on Capitol Hill has led to animosity between Democrats and the White House. The fight over health care reform is again ramping up for lawmakers. ABC's Janae Norman is in Washington tracking the very latest.
Democrats didn't win. President Trump did by out-negotiating them. That's the message from Budget Director Mick Mulvaney about the bipartisan spending bill to keep the government funded through September.
They were desperate to make this administration look like we couldn't function, like we couldn't govern. And we know that a large part of their base, especially their left-wing base, wanted a shutdown and certainly didn't want them to cut a deal with us.
The more than $1 trillion spending measure doesn't include cuts to Planned Parenthood or sanctuary cities, nor does it include funding for the president's proposed border wall or the president's proposed cuts to agencies like the EPA. Still, Mulvaney insists Trump won.
The president delivered on his promises and got his priorities funded. They want you to think they won. What they don't want you to know is the American people won here because the president simply out-negotiated them.
We felt that it was a bipartisan negotiation. As I said, the leaders, Democrat and Republican, House and Senate, work well together, and why ruin that?
And the fixation on scoring a Trump victory isn't over.
How's health care coming, folks? How's it doing? All right, we're moving along.
The president hasn't gotten any major legislative win, but hopes to change that this week with a vote on the GOP's amended plan to repeal and replace Obamacare.
We're excited about this policy. We're making very good progress with our members, and our president has been instrumental in that.
Vice President Pence was on Capitol Hill today meeting with moderate Republicans on health care. House GOP would like to see a vote before Congress leaves town Friday, but they still need more support. Janae Norman, ABC News, Washington.
Janae, thank you. And our sister station in Washington is holding a discussion on President Trump's first 100 days in office. It begins at 7 o'clock tonight. A panel will discuss the president's accomplishments, his failures. Topics will include health care, immigration, and the Supreme Court. You can join the discussion on our website, abcnews4.com.
We'll be right back. You're watching ABC News 4 at 5.